Hey, my name's MJ. I was diagnosed with autism in the summer of 2023, so just last year, and it has been an interesting journey because I was aware that I was autistic for quite a while, but I went through private diagnosis in the end after years of believing I was autistic but not 100% sure and living with imposter syndrome. The process of getting diagnosed was actually fairly easy for me from the moment I had made contact with the company that I wanted to use, and the time that it took for me to actually get my diagnosis was maybe just 3 or 4 months. It wasn't a long time. There was a heck of a lot of information passed within that period, and there was a lot of research done into my background, into my family, and it was a lot of grilling, raw conversations that I had to have. So it was uncomfortable, but at the same time, it was a really quick process for me. And I think that's mainly because I went private. It was much easier. It's a lot harder if you go through the NHS route. It could take years, and you could be met with lots of professionals who don't agree with you or don't believe you. People might know that I'm autistic because I can sometimes stim in public. They're very subtle stims, but still, regardless, not many people dance their fingers or flick their fingers in public. So that can be quite an obvious autistic trait if you see me doing that. Also, I'm a very literal thinker. So when I'm having conversation with people, I can take things very literally, and that can get me in a bit of a sticky situation with someone. Or I'm just laughed at because I don't understand the content of the conversation. I'm not very shy when it comes to saying that I'm sensory overloaded. If I smell something disgusting, or if the room is an absolute tip, I will voice that to people around me. So my bluntness can make it obvious that I'm autistic. I can cut a lot of labels off of my clothes because they are really itchy. So that's quite a subtle thing that other people wouldn't necessarily notice about me being autistic. Another thing is that my meltdowns generally happen behind closed doors. If I'm feeling a meltdown come upon me, I will try and prolong it as long as I can till I get home and I feel safe. So other people don't generally see that I have meltdowns. My husband, unfortunately, is the only one that has seen me have a really huge meltdown. Shutdowns in the same, like I have a lot of shutdowns, but they go unnoticed by other people because you can generally hide a shutdown a lot easier. And lastly, I have huge anxiety, but it's something that's really, really subtle, and I can hide it through subtle stimming. So people don't generally see how anxious I am, and therefore they don't assume that I'm living as a neurodivergent person. People wouldn't assume I'm autistic because I am really good at communicating. I give a lot of eye contact. I make friends really easily. Don't know how to maintain them, but I can make friends. I can hold down a job. I have a mortgage. I'm married. These are things that people don't generally associate with autism. I'm also not a boy who's obsessed with trains, really good at maths, loves to line things up. And that's usually the stereotypical view of what people think of autistic behaviours are. And also that extreme behaviours that you can get with some autistics, the display of behaviours. I don't react the same way other autistics can in public. So I am perceived to either be mildly autistic or not autistic at all. I can feel other people's emotion when I enter a room. This is a bit of a strength of my autism. I can feel what other people are feeling without it being really stated obviously to everyone in the room. And I can adapt how I interact with them based on what my brain is telling me. The challenge of being autistic for me is that I can have hyper empathy in certain moments, and I can be so overcome with my own emotion as well as other people's emotion that I'm not able to properly engage in conversation or assess my environment. It can be very overstimulating for me to feel so intensely on certain things. I grew up in a Christian household, so my faith has always been part of knowing who I am. I think the rules that Christianity have really helped me to feel grounded as a child and knowing what was right from wrong, and the high sense of justice that I've had has basically come from having a faith and knowing how to conduct myself in life. Church has always been a place of community, and having people in my life who accept me and love on me, especially having a diagnosis where I feel like the world rejects me. So God's people are the people that generally accept me, and that's quite a good feeling. Since my diagnosis, my faith has been instrumental in my identity. I know exactly who I am and how my brain works. And God has always known that about me. And God has always accepted that about me. So my faith is really strong because I am the King's daughter and I have somewhere to belong. My faith has got me through some really dark times in my life, and I feel as an autistic person it is really rare that we can avoid any kind of trauma. The Bible is very clear that suffering is part of life. So knowing that my faith and my diagnosis go hand in hand just makes me feel human. And God accepts me just the way I am. So my faith helps me to accept me just the way I am.
Hi, I'm Holly. I am 41 years old and I was diagnosed August 16th of this year, 2024. Quite luckily, it was very easy for me to obtain an assessment because I live in America and the wait time is not the same as it is in Europe and other places around the world. And because aside from the interviews and testing, I submitted a lot of color-coded images of things like report cards, past notes from teachers, candid photos throughout the years of my hand gestures, as well as my sameness in clothing, and my collections and special interests. And because of that, the psychologist doing my testing said that we would need a lot less time to actually evaluate whether or not I am autistic. And we spent a lot of that time talking about my higher support needs. But I do want to say that people are often surprised that someone who is level 2 or has substantial support needs can be diagnosed later in life as an adult. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances. For me, I was in and out of foster care when I was younger. Yeah, so after I was adopted at 9 years old, all of my traits were put on me being in foster care. So there's no need to feel ashamed if you are a level 2 or have substantial support needs and you weren't diagnosed as a young child. I don't go out much, but when I do go places with my spouse, often in the checkout line at the grocery store, I'm doing a lot of this, I'm doing a lot of this, and a lot of this, and I won't notice, but everyone else seems to notice, and I've even had people come up to me before and say things like, oh, you must be used to rocking children, because I was going like this a lot, and I guess they associated it with like this. And so that was interesting. I also just don't make eye contact with people in person. It's not really a shyness thing for me. It's really a sensory issue. I'm a very visual person, and I'm taking in all of that visual input of the raising eyebrows, and so I'll need to look at something static like the floor or the wall so I can really take in what they're saying. I think the third thing is, even my psychologist who did my assessment, one of the things that stuck out the most is consistently loud. I really try to help this, but I do have a consistently very loud voice. And I'm making an observation about someone who's like the next checkout lane over. I'm not quiet about it, and then I can be seen as rude, so that's not great. As far as autistic traits that people don't notice, if you're in person, you're going to notice. But really the times when my autistic traits go the least noticed are probably on my YouTube channel. Even though I have no wanting to hide the fact that I'm autistic and that I have stems, both vocal and in movement, I do also really want the message I'm trying to convey, whether it be about creativity or identity, to be able to be easily received by the person watching the video. And when I'm going like this, and I am have a lot of vocal stems, then sometimes people can just be motion sick before I really even get a chance to convey what I want to say. This next question is the reason why I reached out to William in the comments, and he ended up sending me a really wonderful email back inviting me to do an interview, which I thought was just really great of him. Having substantial support needs, or level 2, whatever you want to call it or not call it, it means that people are always going to notice that I'm autistic. I can't mask in person the way that other people can, and people who don't know about autism may even think that I maybe have a mental illness because of the way that they see me interacting with the world, or maybe think that I have an intellectual disability if they really don't know anything about autism and they don't really have a base to compare me with. And so it can be quite difficult. And I know that people with lower support needs can understand when going through burnout often kind of what it feels like to be more akin to level 2. But for me, not being able to drive, cook for myself, live on my own, hold down any sort of traditional job outside the home, that's my starting point, not where I am when things are really dire. And so I think it's really important to listen to people with substantial support needs. Visibility is important, and people with substantial support needs need to find each other, because I'm not getting everything that I need, because I'm not being fully seen and understood through all the aspects of being autistic for me. I love that. Really, I attribute this to being autistic, that I am such a visual person. It has enhanced my life so much, and I've been able to partake in so many creative pursuits because of it. And I'm very much a fixer. I can find some great creative out-of-the-box solutions, and I attribute that so much to my autistic brain. Faith is really a tough issue for me to talk about because it is so entangled in the church that I grew up in the Deep South, where I was treated very differently because of my autistic traits, like my very deep curiosity and need to ask a lot of questions, and just being overall very different and non-conforming. That was especially so with my peers in the youth group. And unfortunately, my school bully went to my church and was a part of the youth group with me. Sometimes when trauma happens in the very place where we hope to be able to explore our faith, especially in our formative years, faith can often be associated with that pain. And I went through a lot of deep pain going to a church with peers who were not accepting at the best of times and quite cruel at the worst of times. But I do hope, and I think I already have a bit in the autistic community, found some really safe people to explore this topic with. And I really do hope that I can be a safe person too. Thank you so much, William, for giving me and other autistic people a platform to discuss their personal experiences. And have a great day, everyone. Bye.
My name is William O'Flaherty. I'm currently 61 years old. I received the results of my professional evaluation for autism a few days after my 60th birthday in February 2024. The process was initially difficult. Back around 2006, I became curious about what was then called Asperger's. I was unsuccessful in finding someone to evaluate me. Then fast forward to the end of 2023, when after going through a lot of work-related stress that year, I began to wonder again more seriously if I might be autistic. Then the process was actually easier. The process was easier at this point because I had come across a place that evaluated not just children, but adults for autism. It was then a three-step process, or should I say a series of 3 appointments. The first was to determine if it was even necessary to do a formal evaluation using a tool called ADOS. I qualified for the next step that also included a few other tools as part of the ruling in and ruling out process. Then the final appointment was the results. Previously, the process was hard because nearly 20 years ago, I don't believe there was anyone in my area who evaluated adults. I tried one place and the scheduling person thought they did, but it turned out not to be true. So I gave up looking for another person, and I believe that place told me they didn't know of any. Additionally, because I was diagnosed with ADHD, an attentive type back in the 1990s, I didn't think there might be other conditions to explain my experiences for a long time. Others might suspect I'm autistic because I go really deep into topics that interest me, and I have the tendency to interrupt others because of my poor social skills. While being shy is not exclusive to autistics, and some autistics are not shy, that is something very true of me. Others probably notice I don't like small talk, and I don't like being around too many people. I also don't like it when things are unpredictable, so I definitely like routines. Finally, I tend to ask a lot of questions when something is unclear to me, and a lot of times it is. So I probably annoy others with my frequent search for clarity. After being diagnosed, I discovered that I dealt with sensory issues more than I was aware of. About 8 months ago, I decided to try wearing noise-canceling headphones like these without playing any music, and learned that I found it had a very calming effect and helped me focus better. Then, at the end of December 2024, about 3 months ago, I got a weighted blanket and found it very comforting. So much that I decided to get an additional one. The first one was 20 pounds, and then I got a 15-pound one. I use both each night now. Some doubt I'm autistic because they hold, like I used to, an incorrect understanding of what autism is. I didn't fit the stereotypical mold for Asperger's, which is now called Autism Level 1, and that's what my diagnosis is now. Most only consider what is typically associated with Level 2 or Level 3 autism as characteristics that are really autistic, and those of us with fewer support needs can actually be autistic if we don't act or seem like them. Related to this, the fact that I have a master's degree and work a full-time job goes against the stereotype many have of autism. Also, I'm over 6 feet tall, and everyone knows you can't be tall and autistic. I'm joking, of course, because I do have a sense of humor and I can be sarcastic, things that many often think disqualify a person from being autistic. Finally, over the years, I learned how to mimic or act like someone comfortable in social situations, which I am not. My positive characteristics that are not unique to autistics are my ability to notice patterns or details that others may miss. So I'm good at analyzing. One of those areas involves uncovering quotes attributed to C.S. Lewis that are not by him. I'm considered by others who are actually Lewis scholars to be the world's authority on C.S. Lewis misquotes. I even wrote a book on the topic, so that proves my obsession. I believe my autism has helped me in the area of learning in that I can pick up, in most cases, something fairly quickly. Finally, my autism is a strength in that because of it, I tend to be a rule follower and dependable, so others can trust and count on me. One of the biggest challenges for me as a late diagnosed autistic at the moment is still dealing with the reality of my diagnosis. Because of being good at analyzing, it is easy for me to overanalyze and give into negative thinking. For example, what would my life have been like if I knew I was autistic 30, 20, or even 10 years ago? Social situations are still challenging for me, especially if they are new and unique. I've also learned that while others might view it as I'm slow at processing things, it's actually that I'm dealing with sensory overload most of the time and am trying to filter out things that others more easily are able to filter. My Christian faith has been a central part of my life since I was 16 years old. I'd gone to church before that, but it was at the age of 16 I became more aware of what it meant to be a Christian. And it wasn't just to try to be a good moral person, but instead believing in your heart that God raised Jesus from the dead and confessing him as Lord. Given my autistic tendency to follow rules, I found it comfortable to have a clear direction in right and wrong. While I've been around others who were legalistic about their beliefs, I've managed to avoid that and live what I believe is a healthier Christian life. While I've dealt with doubt when life was difficult, I've always managed to remain steadfast in my faith in the Lord Jesus. Likewise, since my diagnosis, while I've questioned God about why wasn't my autism revealed sooner, I hold on to the belief that He is all-powerful and all-knowing, and I am not.
Mike Westerfield, 48 years old, diagnosed a couple of years ago. The process of getting diagnosed was quite easy here for me. I got diagnosed and got in to see a psychologist in about 4 months. I noticed after watching Love on the Spectrum with my wife, who's a therapist, that I had some unique characteristics that a lot of children with autism have. And I noticed that I used to have or acted in certain ways when I was younger after watching a lot of these episodes on Love on the Spectrum. So this caused me to really think about my childhood and things that happened to me, bullying, and just remembering that I've been masking for years and trying to really act like that or act differently than the way I really felt. I found myself mimicking behaviors. I didn't know how to smile until about 10 years ago. So there's just things that I just thought that everybody felt and everybody did. And after watching Love on the Spectrum and researching autism for about a year, I realized that I had a lot of unique characteristics that were in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that fit the criteria for autism spectrum disorder. So that, and then my youngest daughter was also diagnosed with autism as well. So that had me kind of thinking that there might be a genetic predisposition to autism. The process was easy in comparison to other places and other people that I've heard. It could take up to a year or 2 years from other people that I've talked to who were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So I feel like I kind of lucked out because I actually was able to get in about 4 months with a clinic that specializes in diagnosing adults for autism spectrum disorder. I think that some traits that people might notice that I have of being autistic is sometimes I will start going into deep topics about things, or if I find something that I'm interested in, if I'm not careful, I have a tendency to interrupt the conversation, and then I'll start talking about something that I'm really interested in, especially theology, psychology, addiction, stuff like that. So those types of things, when I start talking a lot about something and I go really deep into something, those are some traits I think someone might recognize. Somebody might recognize also that I don't like to be around a lot of people. I'm very good at socializing, but I just, after a period of time, I kind of have to get away. I don't like just engaging in conversations for long periods of time with a lot of people. I also don't like small talk. I'm good at it, but it's just something I'm not. I think people can probably tell after a while that there might be some. I'm not going to say it's not genuine, but it might be a little forced at times. Those are probably some things I think of that people might think that about that I might be autistic, especially with the deep thinking, very philosophical, go into subjects very deeply more than the average person. I think people tend to think that they say often, like, you don't look autistic. So I think people may not notice that how awkward I feel. There's oftentimes I'm always rethinking something that I said. If I say something, there's oftentimes I'm wondering, how did that sound? How did that come across? Man, I feel stupid for saying that. I mean, I can't believe I said that. So people probably don't notice a lot of that thought process that I have, of what's going on in the inner chat or the inner dialogue of my mind. People probably don't notice a lot of my sensory issues. There's certain noises, certain sounds that just drive me crazy. But I'm not going to let anybody know that's driving me crazy, because I've learned to mask and kind of hide these things. But they probably wouldn't notice those things. They probably wouldn't notice that I have a strong sense of justice. So there are times where I see something going on, or somebody's told me about something, and I found myself not really judging people, but I found myself over the years since I was younger, always being a moral, you want to say, a rule follower. So a strong sense of justice, and I may not agree with what somebody's doing, but I want to say something, but I've learned not to speak my mind. So they probably don't notice a lot of that the way I'm feeling inside. I feel like I blend very good into society. I feel like I've learned over the years to mask a lot of characteristics. I remember as I was a kid learning how to even just position my hands at times, or learning how to look or cock my head, even at times trying to learn how to smile. So there's things and characteristics that I've learned to mask over the years. And I think people may not, think I'm autistic just because I might not do a lot of rocking, although I do rock sometimes. I've never been hand flapping or anything like that. Some of these stereotypes that people think all autistic people do, but they don't see me hand flapping or rocking a lot, or just maybe having a meltdown. Although I've had several meltdowns throughout my life, especially as I've gotten older, these meltdowns have not been in the workplace or on my job. They've been when I've gotten home. Typically, when I'm overstimulated, I get home. There's been times I've had a lot of meltdowns. So they may not think I'm autistic because they don't see meltdowns in public view, so to speak. But I'm having them. And they also don't see the shutdowns or the burnouts where I just have nothing in my mind. And it's just completely blank. And sometimes I just don't even, I thought it was depression for years. I found out it never was depression. It was just shutdowns. Everything mentally drained, sucked out of my mind. But people don't know that because I've learned to just put on a good mask and just keep talking, especially as being a counselor. I found that with my autism, being a deep thinker and really obsessing over things of interest has caused me to research so many different things in my life that I've been told that I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. I think this is a unique strength, especially within the profession I'm in as a counselor. I love psychology. I love theology. So these things have caused me to research many different things, go to college, a few graduate degrees. So I think in this end, the autism has really helped me in that way. Also, I don't think I don't struggle with theory of mind. So I have an ability to really get in somebody's mind. And I'm very overly sensitive in empathy. So I really care about people very deeply, sometimes to a fault. And I found that this has helped me out as a therapist, because a lot of my clients have really felt that I truly want to help them, which I really do. So I think that is actually, I don't hear a lot with people talking about autism, but for me, being like in the social science field, that's really helped me out a lot. It's also autism with being a very strong rule follower. I've tried to raise my children up the best I could and actually exemplify that behavior of good moral character for my children. So I think it's been a very strong strength with that as well. I also am very faithful to my wife. I don't believe in stepping out or doing anything, and she really appreciates that. So I think that's also with just being a devout follower in my faith, my religious faith, and being a rule follower. I think that's really helped me out as well. I consider those strengths with autism. I remember having meltdowns at about 8 or 9 years old, and never really had any meltdowns until then. And that became challenging at times. I didn't have them a lot, but I did have some meltdowns. As I got older, I noticed meltdowns more as I was an adult. The more I went into the workforce and I started working and things became more complicated, I started recognizing I was having a lot more meltdowns in the law enforcement profession. I'd come home and I just thought I had anger issues. And I kept thinking, what am I angry about? I'm not really angry about anything, but I found out I was overstimulated. So I would say that for sure the meltdowns have really been a hindrance over the years. I built 2 addiction treatment centers, and through that process, being overly stimulated coming home at night, I was prone to having some meltdowns, and some of the reasons I started questioning me being on the spectrum. But I think those are the biggest drawbacks, as well. Shutdowns, just my brain shutting down sometimes hasn't really affected me. But after sessions and a long day, sometimes I get home and I absolutely have nothing in my brain. And I just have to sit down and just be by myself for a while. So those 2 things I would say have been the biggest struggles for me with being on the spectrum. One other thing, sometimes complicated things I don't get very easily at times, and when I don't, I have a tendency to really get upset internally when somebody might, I've been, there's been people before that thought called me stupid growing up or something like that, and it wasn't because I was not intelligent. I was just having a hard time processing something. But once I've learned to get it, then everything's good. Those have been some struggles as well. And my last thing, trying to fit in with society and be somebody I'm not just to fit in, it's been exhausting over the years. So my religious faith as a Christian, it was very difficult at first because the element of faith was something that was very, very hard for me to accept. I wanted to prove everything. So I studied apologetics, and that helped lead me to Christ. Actually, I was a Christian minister, left Christianity, was a Muslim for years, and then Jesus appeared to me in a dream, and then that led me back in, and I fully accepted Christ. But if I'm to be honest, I think my autistic brain was a hindrance initially because it was hard for me to walk out on faith. What does that actually mean? Because I'm so used to living my life of trying to prove everything. However, once I walked out on faith and I truly trusted and surrendered to Christ, it just made much more sense. And it makes more sense now, after, with the diagnosis, it's helped me to understand. It has made sense. Things make much more sense with my brain and everything else. And I also have found myself growing stronger in my relationship with Christ due to me feeling that I'm unique in that I am autistic, and there's nothing wrong with it. And there's some strengths that come with that. So I feel like, my autistic brain, although I may have kind of came in between me accepting Christ in the beginning, once I fully surrendered or walked out on faith, it's helped me to have a beautiful relationship and also have a greater love for humanity and recognize truly how we're all different.
Hey everybody, this is Hunter, and I'd like to hang out with you for a little while and talk about my autistic experiences. I'm 56 years old, and I was diagnosed at 56. And my diagnosis was very easy, and in fact, it was one of the best experiences of my life. The psychologist who did the diagnosis was excellent. He was very easy to talk to. He put me right at ease, and I didn't feel the need to mask. And our conversation just went so easy. And so finally, I asked him if he is autistic, and he said that he is. And I wasn't surprised because it's easier for me to talk to autistic people than it is to non-autistic people. So it went really well. And in fact, at one point, he even said it was like talking with an old friend. And I said, I'm right there with you, brother. So it was a good experience for me. And I would recommend anybody seeking an autism assessment that you try to find someone who is autistic to do it for you. Autistic traits that I have that other people notice, the biggest one is that I'm an introvert. I don't talk very much, and I like to spend a lot of time alone. Now, I will talk quite a bit if it's about a special interest or if I'm with somebody that I'm comfortable with. But otherwise, and even especially on days when I don't have much energy, all I want to do is to just kind of grunt. You know what I mean? So a lot of people have told me that I seem to be in my own world. And I'm not a joiner. I don't take part very often in group activities, and I don't really enjoy it when I do. And a lot of people have said they don't know what makes me tick. Now, as far as autistic traits that people don't notice, those mostly revolve around stimming, because I don't do a whole lot of stimming in front of people because I don't want to irritate them and I don't want to get a lot of negative attention. But one stim that I really like to do is walk around in circles when I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I like to walk around like a swimming pool, something about that size. And I like tracks too. And I don't know if any of you out there have ever heard of this or if any of you do this, but I like to walk in figure eights. Because when you do a figure eight, you get 2 circles for the price of 1. Also, most people don't know that I eat the exact same thing every day. But you know, I got to be honest with you. People know that I'm different. They can pick up on that. Nobody's ever said that I'm just like everybody else. I mean, you know, so, and I'm not good at masking, but I'm okay with that because I like who I really am. Just like all of you out there should like who you really are too. So there you go. Autism is a strength when I'm trying to be creative. It's helped me immensely with music. I feel like I hear things that other people don't hear, or I hear them in a different way. I pick up on things that other people don't. I think I have a richer sensory experience than most people. And I think autism gives me a depth that the average person doesn't have. And like most autistic people, I have deep empathy for others. I like to help and encourage people whenever I can. And I don't like to see people hurt. It hurts me when other people hurt. And also, I mean what I say. There's no hidden meaning or motive in my words or actions. Honesty and being genuine are very important to me. Also, I can hyper-focus like crazy. I can keep going until a task is finished. I mean, it's like a son of a gun. I mean, I can really just keep going. Doesn't matter how big of a task it is. But now that kind of leads into the next thing I want to talk about how autism can be difficult sometimes, because while it can be a strength to be able to hyper-focus like that, I also get worn out by hyper-focusing too much and not taking breaks when I need to, because I don't like interruptions. Interruptions are painful for me. And transitions are tough. Changing from one task to another, one place to another, any kind of transition. And that kind of leads into the next thing, that the holidays are very tough for me because they feel like a transition and an interruption. And also I like routine. So holidays are a break from the routine. And I'm a very slow processor. So whenever there's a break from the routine, it takes me a long time to get used to it and to process it. And also because of slow processing, instructions are difficult for me. And I like to have them written down so that I can refer to them. And, you know, basically, I could just say that being autistic is difficult whenever I walk out the door and go out into this world that's not set up for autistic people. So it's a challenge. But I like my autistic mind. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I really like the autistic minds of other people. Autistic people are my favorites. And so the world's not set up for us, but that's not autism's fault. People might not think I'm autistic because I am self-supporting. I've been employed my entire adult life. I've got 2 college degrees, and I'm putting myself out there by doing things like doing this profile. You know, none of those things are typical autistic behavior. But if anybody were to doubt that I'm autistic because of those things, I just have to tell them that those things are not easy at all for me. And it's kind of a miracle that I've been able to do them. When I was growing up, we went to church and Sunday school every Sunday. And I learned from the Bible. And I got my first Bible when I was in first grade. We were at a Days Inn hotel on vacation, and the cover of that Bible said, "Take this book from Days Inn." So, you know, we're autistic. We take things literally. So I said, "Okay, I'll take it. Thank you." You know, and it was a New Testament. And by the time I got to high school, I read it from front to back. And then later in life, I read the entire Bible. So I've had a good grounding that's kept me out of trouble. And it's reassuring to know that there's somebody out there, that's God, who gets me. You know, I'm no mystery to him. He understands me completely. He knows my heart. He knows my motives. And I'm very comfortable talking with him. I've talked with him a lot in my life. And so that's very reassuring to know that he knows everything about me. He knows me better than I know myself. And he still loves me and still likes me. Well, William, I want to thank you for having me on your channel and giving me this opportunity to hang out with everybody and just talk about my experiences. I really appreciate everybody out there and appreciate you listening to me. And I would love to talk to you again real soon.
I'm William O'Flaherty. Thanks for visiting my channel. Please consider liking and or sharing this video. Also, feel free to comment and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and watch other videos.